gone out and seen family and stuff on the West Coast, but that'll happen.
Soon enough. We hope.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Mahoney, whenever you're ready.
Okay, Lynn, do you want to start with roll call of the members?
Sure. Laura Edmonds is absent tonight. John Mahoney,
Present.
Ben Vilas,
Present.
Jessica Cardone,
Present.
Becky Walsh,
Present.
Richard Caratu,
Present.
and Cynthia Dull she's absent right now, but will be joining us late.
Terrific. Well, welcome everybody. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for the town of New Canaan for October 5th. A little bit about the process. We're going to ask each applicant to come up in order. We would ask that you please state your name for the record. And when anybody speaks, if you would state your name, that would be very helpful. We're going to ask you then to state your request, the nature of your request, and ask you to be very specific about the nature of your hardship. The hardship has to run with the land, be particular to your property, and can't be financial in nature. The board will then ask you some questions. And then we're going to ask, to the extent there's anybody in the audience who would like to speak either in favor or against the application, we'll ask them for their input. After that, you'll have the applicants will have a chance to answer any questions. And then before we go into business session, we'll ask the applicant again one last time to just be sure that we've covered everything. There's nothing more you want of us. Once we go into the business session, we can't take, you're welcome to stay, hear the discussion, but we can't take any more input from the audience. There are 5 members. It takes 4 affirmative votes to grant a variance. And I think that is it. So the first application today is 773 Silver Mine Road.
Mr. Mahoney, you need to seat.
Thank you very much. I'm going to seat Becky Walsh for Luke Tastian and Richard Caratu for Laura Edmonds.
Perfect. And then you can read the agenda item, please.
Yes, so the first agenda item is 773 Silver Mine Road.
Hi, everyone. My name's Frank Diurno. I'm the architect on the project. I'm here to present this addition to an existing cottage. Owners, Derek Metz is here. And Gail Junior Metz is here. And what we're talking about here is the property on 773 Silver Mine Road. The request is an appeal from ZBA on side yard setback relief from 35 feet required to 28.4 feet to extend a small corner of 1-story cottage addition to existing detached cottage on the side of the property. The additional request is ask for relief of the front yard setback to house an enclosed wood storage already on the property at the back of the garage. So we're asking in both requests for the front yard and the side yard. The front yard required is 45 feet and the request is for 41.9 feet, which is less non-conforming than the current front garage at approximately 36 feet. So I'm going to show you what we're really looking at. Here's the property.
Mr. Diurno, I can bring up the survey. So
Okay.
hold
I
on
was
one
gonna
second.
say,
I'll
I can
just-
do it. I can do a
Oh,
screen share as well.
I got,
if
I,
it's
I got
easier.
it. I'm gonna
All
get
right.
the.
Okay.
Thanks, Lynn.
Yeah.
So this is the proposed survey that I'm talking about.
I do have it up, Lynn, if it would help you. Oh, you got it. Never mind. Perfect.
Okay, so here's the drawings that everyone has. So you can see on that existing survey, the setback that's going through the front yard of the existing garage, even the front yard of the house. So the house and the cottage are non-conforming. What we're trying to do here is to connect the cottage to the house. And in doing that, we're expanding the rear of the cottage, which is encroaching on the side yard. The reason we're connecting the cottage to the house with a breezeway is Gail, who's here tonight, is going to be living in this cottage, relocating from another state, and we're trying to make it very safe for her to get to the house and for the family to get to her. We can go to the proposed survey. Can we scroll to the proposed survey?
Lynn, I think you need to go to the next page.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Shows proposed additions. There it is. So you can see from this survey that we're showing the front yard wood storage, which is less non-conforming on the back of the garage, which is this, still considered the front yard. It's within the side yard setback, but it's not within the front yard. And then the proposed addition in the back of this cottage is 28.4 feet. It's encroaching where there's a 35-foot setback. We are square to the existing building. By squaring off to the existing building, we're keeping with the architectural elements of the style of this cottage. It's extending to create a small living area, and it squares us up to the house, which the breezeway will connect. So it's a very small addition. Can you go to the next slide of drawings? It shows the proposed SP1. It shows some pictures of the property, and it shows it in floor plan of what's happening. Yep, that's the one. Yeah, that's it. You can slide down a little bit. All right, so now you can see the existing front yard where the garage, two-car garage is encroaching. And I shaded in the back corner that we're asking for the appeal of the side yard setback, which is the living area of this cottage. If you want to go to the elevations, it's A2. Yep, that's it. And I would scroll down just a little bit on that page. Okay. So here's the rear of this cottage addition. And you can see that, again, size scale is in keeping with what's there. The breezeway becomes the connector to this cottage. So now it's no longer an accessory structure. And it's more of a safety issue for the family to get to and from the cottage to Gale. Derek, do you want to step in? This is Derek Metz, everyone.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you for the time tonight. I'm the homeowner. So just to give you a little bit of background, when we started thinking about moving in, my stepmother, Gail, who's on Zoom with us tonight, we actually went out and had a conversation with all of our neighbors. So we've talked to all the surrounding neighbors, told them basically what we were planning on doing and got their support. As a matter of fact, I think you'll see in the addendums there, you'll see some attached letters of support from our immediate neighbors, including the land trust, by the way, which is the property right next to us, which is the one that would be, close to that sideline that we're asking for the variance for. So everybody seems to be on board with it. We try to do the right thing and talk it out with all the neighbors, and we have a lot of support for it, quite frankly. And specifically, just to make sure that people understand what we're trying to accomplish, it's really to move Gail closer as she ages, right? She's in Michigan currently, and my family originally being from the Midwest, we've now moved and put down roots here in New Canaan. We've been here 8.5 years now, something like that. And we're planning on being here for another 20 or 30. So what we are trying to do is move her here closer to us. So as she ages, we can keep an eye on her. It's pretty simple. So that's kind of what we're looking to do. Gail, I don't know if you want to say hi or say a couple things, but.
Hi. When Derek proposed this to me, I was absolutely thrilled at the thought of, first of all, not being by myself in Michigan, but secondly, seeing my grandkids grow up and having Derek with me, and because I love him, and just being part of the family again and not being separated by a large number of states. And I also am concerned about, as I get older, I'm already going to be 74. And in not too many years, I'm going to need a little bit of help. And just knowing that my family is there to help me means the world to me. So thank you.
So what we're trying to do is give her enough space that's comparable to what she, is used to. I mean, it's going to be a little bit smaller no matter what. But this addition gives her enough space that she actually could live in something that's used to, that she's used to, that we could get a wheelchair around if we need to, for example. You can see that we're pulling up pictures right now. This is actually a great layout. This was just taken a couple days ago. You can see the yellow line is actually the layout of the cottage there. And Frank, I don't know if you want to take over, but.
So I did this on Saturday. It was a beautiful day. The red tape, the caution tape, that's the electric red tape, is really what we're asking for in the variance. And it really shows how small this piece is in the scope of the project. But it's important and how it really completes the corner of this small addition.
So Frank?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm allowed to ask questions, right? At this point?
Yeah.
John, I just want to make sure. Okay, so just to help us, because again, we have to establish hardship here, right? So
Yep.
what if you didn't get this variance, what is the alternative, Frank? From a pure architectural building standpoint,
Right.
I think this is a great idea you did here. So the alternative here is that the building size would be this red tape. You would have to.
Okay, so here's our other limit that we have, Richard, is we have a septic tank you could see in the backyard,
Yes.
that round circle, and we have a pump chamber, which is a red stake towards the addition. You'll see that out of the ground.
Right.
So we're limited to put this addition any closer than the minimum setback to these items.
Okay.
So here is another limitation on what was site condition on a cottage that was built 1955.
Okay, so, and again, I saw that in your memo here, limiting the use of the backyard. The septic is located directly behind the house, limiting the use of the backyard. I highlighted that sentence. So basically, you cannot move the cottage or expand it any closer to the septic area because you're not allowed to do that, and therefore you're forced to expand it the opposite direction, in impeding on the setback area because you're limited by the septic tank on the other side.
Right, and unfortunately, this site lends itself to a pump for the system. And it's not just the tank, it's the actual pump that's even closer to this proposed addition.
Okay. No, that's important for us to understand.
Yeah. So that's why they put that stake towards the addition off the tank circle. Is we have a pump chamber, and this pump chamber is leading all the way across the property to a real clear leach field that we are constrained by.
Okay. And my second question is, again, we can't personalize this, but why is that additional space needed if we came back and said, well, why can't Gail live within the limits of that red tape? Like, from a,
So let's go back to the original cottage. I'm going to go back to that drawing. Maybe you can scroll up, Lynn. It shows an existing EX1.
I have to go back to the survey, so give me a second.
Yeah, it's right after the survey. It says EX1.
and Gail, don't get upset with me. I'm only doing my job and asking the question. So I like to get you as much space as possible. So
Richard's a good guy.
Frank, while we're doing that, what's the requirement for the setback off that pump chamber where the red stake was?
So, yeah.
15 feet.
So we're limited to 15 because it's slab on grade construction.
So you can be no closer than 15 feet to that red stake.
Because we're not having any crawl space and it's slab on grade construction, yes.
Okay.
Which just barely gets us the addition.
And your yellow tape is basically at that 15-foot mark?
Within reason, approximately, from the pictures, yes. So you can see the existing cottage. If you go up to EX1,
That's the first,
Excuse me.
that's the first page in your presentation, the survey.
okay, there's a drawing that says EX1, it's existing floor plan.
Oh, the floor plan, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I should have said that.
This is your site plan.
It might be at the end.
Yeah, the,
That's it right there.
okay.
Okay. Okay, that's good. You can go up just a little bit.
Yeah, let's see. I want to see if I can get it to show properly.
All right. Okay, so this was really a very small cottage in 1955. You can see a small kitchen, basically a studio. There really isn't a bed. It's the living area. It's got a day bed. The kitchen is really a kitchenette with a sink and a small stove. The bathroom is really not accommodating a future with Gail being there as time goes on. So it's very, very limited in living area. By today's standards, this makes a lot of sense in 1955, but you really can't even fit any furniture or anything in it.
And the biggest fear for us is wheelchair. We're trying to make it wheelchair accessible. That's how we're trying to design it. If that makes
okay. So Frank, if you could just give us rough measurements of each area, so the living area, approximately room sizes, just like we have for our records, approximate.
For the new or the existing?
Well, I guess what the new would be.
Okay. So as dimensioned, the living and dining area is the addition. So we took where the kitchen is existing and we proposed the bedroom there, which is still a small bedroom at 9.5 feet by almost 13 feet. So it's 12, 11. So that's the bedroom, which is really the kitchen. We expanded the bathroom to be ADA compliant, and that bathroom is now 12 feet by, I believe, 10 or 9 feet. The dining living area is combined, so it's one open space. That's the addition, which is 18 feet by 17 feet. Kitchen is still very small in this cottage, which is 8.5 feet by 10 feet, with the hallway that's really the circulation space to enter from the mudroom. So the scale is small enough that one person can live here. We didn't try to expand it beyond anyone's means for one person to live. The idea of this porte cochere is really the breezeway. It gives Derek an option in the future to drive to the backyard if he needs access to the backyard, because the other side of the property is a pond. And the mudroom is only 5'4" by 7'9". And there's a small laundry closet between the mudroom and the kitchen. So a very modest cottage for a very modest house that's attached to it.
Frank, how much is the little pie shape that you had staked out with the red tape that represents the setback line?
Square footage?
Yeah, the square footage of that in that triangle, is it about 37.5 feet, I think, maybe a little less?
Yeah, it's a little less, 35. So we're asking for, I don't know, it's about 50 to 60 square feet.
Oh, it can't be, right?
Right.
Well, maybe it is.
It's just that, because we got that bay window.
Yeah.
12 by 8. It's about
Okay.
12 by 8.
12 by 8 divided roughly by 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Question for you on the wood storage. Is that fenced in? Is that
It's enclosed with walls. It's actually it's a closet.
okay?
So we're just gonna enclose what's exposed wood. And unfortunately, it encroaches on the front. I made it equal on the back of the garage. So it's proportioned so it's symmetrical. And it accesses from the back of this little addition. And it's 4 feet by 15 feet. And he's got much more wood than this, but we're gonna pull him back on storage to 4 feet wide. And it encroaches on the front yard, but much less than what the existing garage is, which is 35 feet, 36 feet right now from the front. And you could see that in the pictures we took on Saturday. I put a stake where that, there's a stake where the proposed wood storage is going to go, and a yellow caution tape in the pictures that we submitted this morning, the 4 pictures on the property. Yeah, it's that one. So you can see to the right of that garage. Yeah, it was the first one. It's the first picture with the front of the garage. That one. So you can see right, yep. That's it. That's the wood storage. Now, we're right next to a nature conservancy, which is uphill. One of the letters from the Nature Conservancy, New Canaan Land Trust, And the condition that the land trust had in the letter, that the owners agreed to supportive improvements on the condition that native screening plants be planted and maintained along the shared property line. And so Derek Metz is going to plant some screening plants.
I can already tell you, I've been working with Tom Cronin and Chris Shipper. I've been working with the land trust actually when they were looking to acquire the property from the Fowlers. So I have a good relationship with them. We've already decided, they actually suggested viburnum, which we think would be a great native plant there. So we're actually both pretty excited about it and maintaining that just to make sure that everybody's happy with that. So that's why you'll see that in the letter there. But we're looking at viburnum on their suggestion.
And that's really screening the parking lot.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's the parking lot.
Yeah, again, we appreciate that from a personal perspective, but the objective of this committee, and John, I don't want to speak for you here, is to really make sure there's a hardship, and I think what you're doing with the land trust from a personal perspective is good and appreciated, but that, cannot affect our decision. The decision really has to be, does the land itself pose a hardship to the situation? And
Yes, well, the cottage in 1955 was built prior to any zoning setbacks of today's standards that are present.
right,
So, and we're limited by the location of the addition based on the septic system, pump chamber, and keeping the scale of this addition to, at a minimum for a cottage.
and it's in your view, Frank, that reducing the size of the cottage is not, is not practical to keep within the setbacks.
To have a useful living and dining area for someone living, which is going to be homebound, right? This is someone that's retired. It's got to be comfortable, and a size of the room that we're talking about, the living and dining area combined, which is 17 by 18 feet, is appropriate to the scale of this cottage. So I don't know how we would eliminate that portion of the building to be able to even go anywhere else. We're really tied at that corner.
Okay.
Frank, could you show us on the proposed plans, and Lynn, I'd ask for your help on this. Can we see the dimension that is limited by the pump chamber?
Give me 1 second, I'll pull it up.
Yeah, it's a dash line that I put in on that floor plan.
I just shared my screen if anybody sees it right here.
So you see there's a dash line right where that pump chamber is,
Yes.
in the corner of the kitchen.
I got you. So that's the 15 feet or so off of the pump chamber.
Yes, and we're accepted because of this mudroom portion of the addition. The health department accepted that because that is really not a living area, it's more the connecting piece, that we were able to go to 10 feet from that mudroom entry. Because it's really just a vestibule.
Gotcha.
But that's it. There's nothing left here. So you can see both dash lines of the encroached setback and where the pump chamber is.
Okay.
Could the pump chamber be moved?
It's going to be a redesign of the system. We were required to do a B100 reserve area for the health department, and that location is on record with the health department. It's at the very rear of the property, hundreds of feet away, towards the very back of the property. Because we're limited by the pool, the pond, it's all the way at the back parcel of this property.
So Frank, just to clarify then, is the pump chamber in place or that is to be put in place?
It's already there. It's been there to the property. Derek, when was this system touched?
Predates my time. I don't know.
Okay.
They did a major addition in the 90s. Could have been then.
Gotcha,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions at this moment from the board members before we ask for questions from the audience? Is there anybody here that would like to speak in favor of the application? Lynn, do you have anybody that you know of?
I don't, there's no one here I think it's just all applicants.
Okay,
There's,
anybody who would wish to speak in opposition of the application?
I don't see anyone for that either, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, members of the committee, before we go, or the board, before we go into the business session, does anybody have any other questions of the applicant?
I just want to be really clear about the wood storage area. That's in the setback? Is that what you're saying, or it's outside of the setback?
The
Just a
woods,
reminder, everyone, just state your name.
Oh,
before
Becky
you
Walsh.
speak. Thanks.
Sorry.
yes, this is Frank Diurno, and the wood storage proposed addition is encroaching on the front yard setback. The front yard setback is already non-conforming of the garage. We are less non-conforming with this small portion of the wood storage than the current garage.
But if you didn't have the wood storage area, would you be even more conforming?
If we kept within the setback for the wood storage, we would lose a small portion of that wood storage by 3 feet by 4 feet. So we have to reduce the size of it not to encroach the front yard. It is not encroaching on the side yard setback.
Lynn, could you just throw up the survey that showed that area of encroachment, please?
Proposed survey.
Or the proposed, yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Sorry, that was John Mahoney who's asking the question. Okay. You see there, Becky, it's the little area.
Yep, okay.
So it's only the small piece in the front that we're asking for that 41 foot, 41.9 feet request appeal for the front yard setback. It's to keep the symmetry of the wood storage on the back of the garage.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Frank or Mr. Metz, any other comments or pieces of information that you would like to give us before we go into business session?
The property was definitely 1955 was developed. The front of the house is over the setback. The cottage is over the front yard setback. So this is an original New Canaan property with a New Canaan house, probably a very small dirt road in the 50s. And I think what we're proposing is really in keeping with what the original house and cottage were intended for, and with the scale and the architecture, we're happy the way it's looking.
I would just add this house is 1865 for the
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cottage was 1955.
Okay. And this is John Mahoney again. Would you state for the record one last time, clearly state the hardship?
Yeah. Let's see where I put that. I'm sorry, it just fell. Sorry about that. So the relief of the front yard setback to the house to enclose wood storage prior to the cottage was built in 1955, prior to zoning of the current regulations. And we're asking for 41.9, which is less non-conforming than the current front garage, which is approximately 36. The appeal for the side yard setback relief from 35 feet to required to 28.4 feet to extend small corner of one-story cottage addition to the existing detached cottage at side property. The additions that we're proposing is based on the current location of the cottage, built in 1955 or earlier, lends itself to limiting where the existing tank and pump chamber of the septic system is at the rear yard. Prior to the new zoning regulations of 1986, when the front yard and side yard setback were required and updated. And there was no prior variance granted to this property.
Okay. Members of the board, are you ready to go into the business session? Any other questions? Okay, then we're now in the business session. I open it up for discussion, comment. You guys are normally not this quiet.
I'll speak first. This is Rich Carrington. I did focus on the limitation of the, the property given, or the addition given the pump chamber, which is existent. So I think it's an extreme hardship to ask to have that pump chamber moved. I think that's, not practical. Thanks to, I guess was Becky's question. So that was a good clarification. And so I think, two, I think Frank's explanation about, I think the space is somewhat practical, given the intended purpose of the space for the occupant, of being able to be, mobile. I don't think it's unduly excessive. I think it was non-conforming to begin with anyway, parts of the property. So I'm inclined to approve the project.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think this is Ben Bilas. I think it's almost a de minimis incursion into the setback. It's clearly limited. Any alternatives are clearly limited by the existence of the pond and the septic field and the pump chamber. So there really isn't an alternative spot for it to go. I think it's sufficiently well thought out that we could support it.
Would somebody like to make a motion?
Could I just, this is Becky Walsh. If they didn't have the wood storage, that would eliminate their need for the front yard request. Is that true, John?
Well, you don't have to eliminate it in total. You would have to eliminate the first couple of feet of it, right? That are in the front yard setback.
Right.
And I think what the applicant was saying is what they've done right now is center it along that wall so it's, not lopsided. But
Right.
that, I'm not advocating, Becky, I just replaying what I heard.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole project seems to be very well thought out. There's obviously some hardships. I have a pump chamber myself, so I kind of know what those setbacks are, and it does limit what you can do. And I appreciate the fact that they would be making the front yard setback more conforming, really. So,
I'm not sure that's the case. I think that if I look at it, they're not reducing the amount of the current nonconformance. They're just not building the woodshed all the way to the front, and I call it the woodshed, with the wood storage all the way to the front of the house.
mhm.
Right.
So it is less in the front yard setback than the existing
Right.
garage is,
Right,
but they're not reducing a nonconformity,
right, okay.
just to be clear.
Yeah, that was a little, not misleading, but it wasn't clear to me until, John, you just recaptured it. I kept looking for how they are reducing the incursion into the setback. And really, it's just that they're not building out as far as the existing incursion.
Correct.
Right.
I think that's correct.
So,
That's my understanding.
right. It's not incorrect that it's less non-conforming than the current front of the garage, as is stated in the hardship summary. But it's not, as we look for, a reduction in the nonconformity.
Right,
Lynn, I recall that they're well under coverage. Is that true? I don't have the
Yes, I believe that was correct. I can double check that. I could pull up their survey, but I'm pretty certain it was well under coverage.
Yeah, way under.
Yep.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Jessica, anything that you'd like to add, or are you okay?
Yeah, I think everybody's noted the various hardships that come with the land. I think to achieve what they're trying to do as well with the connectivity between the cottage and the main house and to make it wheelchair accessible, planning for the future, that there isn't a lot else they could do as far as placement for the cottage if they were to try to move it, particularly with things that are already affecting the land, like the pump house and everything else. So I don't know, I thought it was a pretty reasonable plan.
Okay, would anybody like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to move forward. Rich Caratu would like to make a motion to move forward.
Okay, Richard, do you want to state the motion and the hardship, and are you including the agreement with the land trust for the screening?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to move forward to grant the variance based on the hardship of the pump chamber and septic and the constraining, with the pond. And I would like to include the agreement that the homeowner has with the land trust as part of, as a condition, thank you, as a condition to our approval.
Based on the plans as submitted?
Yes, based on the plans as submitted.
Okay.
I would second that. This is Becky Walsh.
Terrific. Jessica, do you want to start the voting?
Cardin in favor?
Ben?
Vilas in favor?
Becky?
Walsh in favor?
Richard?
Rich Caratu in favor.
Mahoney in favor? Congratulations, your variance is granted. I would ask you please to be sure, because we've had some expansions into setback in the past, and occasionally there are field changes made that increase the encroachment. And I'd ask you to please be very, very careful of that. We don't want to have to come back with a whoops, okay? But thank you very much, and we look forward, Gail, to you joining the New Canaan community.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, 141. Just before we go there, Lynn has
Yep.
is Cynthia with us yet?
She is not.
Okay, so I guess we will go in on 141 Hemlock Hill Road with the same board members, with Becky sitting in for Luke and Richard, you for Laura.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Dan, I turn it over to you.
Wait, Mr. Mahoney, you want to read the agenda item 141
Oh,
Hemlock
okay.
Hill Road?
141 Hemlock Hill Road. Dan Radman, authorized agent for Matthew and Mariko LeBaron. Well, yeah.
Okay. Good evening, board members. This is Dan Radman, architect. Coming to you tonight for a project we're working on over on Hemlock Hill concerning the garage structure on this property. Currently, this is approximately a 6-acre site. There's a pond at the rear, existing 2-story brick structure, which is the primary residence. Existing drive area coming into the property off of Hemlock with a turnaround circle in front of the house. And then there's a side drive that leads to 2 existing garages. There's an existing 2-story 4-car garage, and then an existing 1-story single-car garage, both of which combined as accessory structures are over the allowable amount in terms of coverage. What we are proposing is to demolish those 2 structures, and it's worth noting both of them are well within the setbacks of side yard, front yard, and well within the setbacks of any wetland lines, both the primary and the setback wetland line. So there's no issue with any of that. What we are here for you to review tonight is specifically the height of the proposed structure. It's currently a 2-story, the main building, the main garage, the 4-car garage is a 2-story structure. As I said, both of them will be demolished, but the main garage has an apartment up above on half of its footprint. And the portion that's below it, the 2-car garage, is very, very short in terms of a usable height, and a very short ceiling height in the existing apartment above. The structure was built back in the, I believe it was the late 50s or 60s, and it was probably added onto over the years. And what we're trying to do is consolidate this. There, perfect. Thank you, Lynn. This is existing photographs. The upper left image is as you're in the turnaround courtyard in front of the main house. That's the side driveway that leads off towards the garage structure. We are planning to keep that pathway, but move it slightly. But the large spruce that you see in the image just behind that wood pile, that is going to remain. It will be cleaned up and trimmed up, but there are 2 large spruces there. Both of them are to remain. There's some smaller short trees that will be taken out and the new driveway put in. But the goal was to keep as much of the existing trees and landscaping in that part of the property so as to maintain the shielding and views, block the views of the garage from the street and from the adjacent neighbor. The upper right image is helpful in describing the existing 2-story portion of the garage, which has the 2-bedroom apartment above. You can see the garage doors on the right compared to the garage door on the left. The garage door on the left is a standard garage door. The garage doors on the right are only 6'5" tall, very short. And the apartment above, that inherently has low ceilings, and you can see the bottom left image, the roof line on that structure is very shallow. There's some existing exterior elevations, which I also included, and you can see in there, the existing roof line is only a 4 and 12 pitch, which is significantly different than the existing main structure and not very much in keeping with the character of, you know, an accessory structure in New England, barn-like look that we were after. So the limitation we have on height in this area is 25 feet to the ridge and 1.5 stories from the average grade. What we are proposing is to be at 27.4, I believe, is the final height. Bear with me one second. 27.4. And 2 stories. The goal being we needed to elevate the garage level below so that we could get a standard height door, so we can get the, you know, modern vehicles into the garage area. In order to do that, we needed about 9 to 9.5 feet of ceiling height in the garage. It's not super tall, but it's tall enough that we can get the proper overhead garage door in there and still maintain the correct aesthetics in terms of proportions of the garage door on the elevation. And then on the second floor, for that living space portion of it, if you want to look at the floor plan up above on it, yeah, A101. On the second floor, a portion of that is a living space, living dining kitchen area. And then there are 2 bedrooms and a bathroom on the right side. And the goal there was to maintain a 8-foot ceiling height above the bathroom, bedrooms, and closet area. And then there would probably be an open ceiling just above the living area. But that would give us the ability, that would allow us to keep the roof as low as possible without introducing dormer cuts or sort of oddly shaped roof lines and eave lines within the structure and the bedrooms themselves. The goal being to create a new single structure of a garage that's more proportional to the rest of the property's structures in the main building. We don't want it to, didn't want to undermine the usability of the garage below in terms of the ceiling height for the vehicles, and also wanted to just maintain a minimum ceiling height up above, again, while maintaining the proper pitch of the roof to make it more appropriate and architecturally appropriate to the site and to the other buildings. You can see on the architectural elevations I've introduced, there's a gable end facing the pool, but the shed dormers along the length of the longer sides of the house do have the shallower pitch, while the steeper 10 and 12 pitch on the main roof kind of keeps the lines similar to what the main structure, the main house is doing. They are dissimilar in character, meaning this is meant to be more of a barn structure. Lynn, if you want to go to the, I think it's the last page of that deck, or right there, yeah. The renderings, this is weathered wood with dark, either dark bronze or dark charcoal accents and paintwork meant to kind of fade into the background of the foliage and of that part of the yard. While still being architecturally appealing and appropriate. Didn't want to have the garage stand out significantly in that part of the property. We wanted the main house to do its own thing. And then also the garage itself, the part that you see on the lower left, the upper left image of view A, that is the side facing the pool. So there is a little more glass on that side in that living area looking back out onto the pool. And again, we're not changing the use of the garage. Again, there's an existing apartment there. We are replacing it with a new 2-bedroom apartment and then consolidating 5-car garages down to 3-car garage, but all as a single structure and a more usable structure. Any questions?
This is Becky Walsh. Did you say that you were currently over coverage with the existing structures?
Correct. For an accessory structure, we're allowed 1,000 square feet. And currently the square footage of both of the combined garages is 1,627. And the new garage, we're reducing it down to 1,211, slightly over the allowable coverage, but that's something we're also planning to go in front of P&Z for relief on that coverage number as well.
And why is that a P&Z issue as opposed to a ZBA issue then?
Mr. Mahoney, just to clarify, the coverage that he's referring to is the size of the accessory structure. If you're over 1,000 square feet on the accessory structure, you get a special permit. It's not the building coverage for the entire property. It's just the size of his accessory structure is larger than 1,000 square feet.
Thank you.
Right. Sorry, I should have made that clear. Again, the property is a little over 6 acres in size, and the total coverage for primary structure as well as accessory, even currently, is significantly, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but significantly below the allowable.
I could pull it up for you.
Thank you.
But they are significantly under.
So this is Becky Walsh again. So you need the variance from us first so that you can go to P&Z and get the special permit.
Correct.
This is John Mahoney. So Dan, you're going from 1,600 feet in coverage to about 1,200, right?
Roughly, yes.
And then what's the size of the existing apartment and what's the size of the new apartment?
Hang on. The existing apartment, bear with me 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
The existing apartment is 732 square feet. And there is a floor plan in the deck of existing floor plans. You can see the layout of the existing ones and the size of the bedrooms, et cetera. Everything's fairly, well, very compact. And then the proposed apartment, that one, hang on 1 second. It was just the apartment itself, I think, was right around 1,000 square feet. Let me just double check that. It's 1,100. That includes the stairwell going up to the second floor, which in the case of the existing, that's an exterior stair, so it's not included in that number.
Okay.
So if you take the stair out of and you try and compare apples to apples, you're probably about that 700, what was that, 700 some odd square feet to about 1,000 square feet.
Okay, thank you. And then the existing height looked to be about 27, or excuse me, the existing height is 25, almost
correct
on, and you're going to 27.4?
Correct.
And this is Rich Carratu. Dan, so the main purpose is to increase the height of the garage below to get vehicles.
Correct. Yep. I mean, we'd like to get an 8-foot tall garage door in there. That'll allow us to get, your typical, Suburbans with whatever might be on top as a rack or so on in there without an issue. But in order for that to work, you need some headroom above that for overhead garage doors and coiling and so on. So 9'6" is kind of the minimum height. We can make all of that work with that overhead garage door and that garage door height,
And then
which drives everything up slightly.
and Dan, what's the ceiling height then in the apartment above?
Currently 7'6".
And what will it be?
It'll be 8 feet above the bedrooms and the bathroom and the stairwell and closet. And then over the living area, it will be cathedral. It'll just be open to structure above.
This is Becky Walsh. If you didn't have the cathedral, could you keep the height down?
It really isn't a factor of the cathedral. It's a factor of the slope of the roof structure and the proportions of the building from the outside. We'd have to shrink everything down, pull it down, or shallow the roof down, which is exactly what we're trying to avoid because it looks horrible, and trying to make it more in line with the roof lines and the slopes of the main house next to it.
And the hardship, this is John Mahoney, the hardship?
The hardship is trying to, like I said, put back the uses that are currently there, which is the garage level below with a living apartment above, but do it in such a way that would allow for proper heights and usable heights in both of the spaces. Obviously, we could do something that could stay under the 25-foot height, but then it would be, it would affect the usability of the garage below, and it would definitely affect ceiling heights in the, half of the apartment level above.
I think that's the, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, this is Jessica Carter. I think that's the challenge for me though, is just that there doesn't seem to be a hardship that is specific to the land. These are things that you would desire for the project, but not necessarily something tied to the land. We've had some that exceed the height, but it's oftentimes because there's maybe a slope and they have to build it up a little bit in one area to bring up the height, and that's the reason it's gone over. So I think, look, my house has dormers and things like that as well to keep it below height. So I think that's the only thing I'm sort of struggling with, is I don't understand what the actual hardship is tied to the land.
This is Rob Frangione. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt.
Rob Frangione, I'm the project engineer for the property. If I could just maybe offer some an interjection. I think the hardship that is unique to this parcel is that the existing garage predates the zoning regulation of the accessory structure height. And then what was there just simply isn't functional. An alternative could be to renovate the existing garage, but that doesn't solve the problem of the ceiling heights, which is what we're trying to accomplish here. So I think the uniqueness of this parcel is the existence of a two-story accessory structure. And we're just looking to make it more architecturally significant and functional for today's use.
Yeah, if we were doing an accessory structure garage that was purely the garage below without the apartment above, there would be no issues. We wouldn't be here tonight. It would be much simpler to meet the guidelines of the height restrictions. But because we're trying to maintain the use of the apartment above, that in itself drives the usable height up.
This is Ben Bilas. I'm not sure that Rob's description of what's a hardship is actually a legal hardship. The fact that the building predates the zoning requirement, you're going to tear the building down. Now the question is, what are you allowed? And you're only allowed something which fits within a legal definition of hardship. If you made a two-car garage, for example, so it was narrower, could you not fit the proper sloping roof above a two-story garage and still meet the total and building heights.
Yeah, if you reduce the program either by the garage or the apartment, you could make anything work.
No, it's not a matter of work. It would be compliant.
If you went to a 2-car garage instead of a 3-car garage?
Yeah.
No, because the building height is driven in the depth of the space, not the width of the space.
Right.
Okay.
Rob Frangiani, I just want to interject. The application that was just before us was also a structure that predated the zoning regulations, and it was
Right,
a worthy application.
But
Yes, they weren't tearing it down, but there was still a functionality use, and I think
Right,
that's
but their
what
application was approved on the grounds that they had a pond and a septic field and a pump chamber, all these hardships that ran with the land. I don't see a hardship that runs. I see a good project, and I see the desire to preserve an apartment, but I don't see why that's of necessity based upon something that is making an alternative impossible.
Just to be clear, this is John Mahoney responding, Rob, to your comment. Each variance is looked at individually based on the individual parcel. And so what we may decide with one property does not set precedent to another.
I understand. Again, Rob Frangiano. I'm just trying to draw a parallel between the two applications.
And what I'll tell you is they're completely distinct applications. Any other comments from Becky or Richard? Do you want to chime in?
Yeah, in my mind, I'm just trying to figure out the hardship here. I know I Googled the standard height of a Chevy Suburban. It's about 75.7, so that's about 6.3 feet high. Yeah, I'm just kind of conceptualizing a hardship here. I'm just trying to think of it.
Yeah, it's Becky Walsh. Is there any way you can get that ceiling height down in the garage area and still get a Suburban? I mean, I see plenty of garages around that have, I don't know that they're 9, what did you say? It was 9 feet?
9 foot
6 inches?
Mhm.
That have Suburbans in them. I mean, maybe you couldn't put a Thule rack on top, but can you cut down on some space in the garage to maybe bring the height down?
Hey Becky, it's Ted Seiple, the contractor on the project. I think one of the questions we get asked most often in viewing a project is, hey, is it possible to raise the height of the garage so we could fit a Suburban in there? So I think what we're looking at here is trying to modernize the structure to get to a point where it's livable. Right now, we can fit a couple ladders in there, but we're really constrained and short of, I mean, certainly my truck doesn't fit in there. Short of an MG or a Volkswagen, it's not necessarily a hardship, but we're trying to modernize this project by consolidating the 2 garages.
And this is John Mahoney. I guess just in response, I understand that the existing garages are undersized, but we're going to a 10-foot ceiling height in the garage space, which just, I'm having a hard time rationalizing that that's a standard garage height. And that seems to be a big chunk of what the ask is for the total building, driving the total building height. It doesn't appear to be, that and a more steeply pitched roof. The 8 feet for a ceiling height in the apartment is certainly, reasonable in my mind. It's just the overall height. I guess I'm struggling a little bit, candidly, that I very much appreciate we're going down in coverage. So that's a good thing, right? Substantially, even though we're still above coverage. But we're also going up in the second story, because we're really only supposed to have a story and a half here. So the second story coverage is going up. and the ceiling height is going up, and it just seems, to be perfectly candid, I'm having a little bit of a difficulty. It seems like a lot of ask with no clear hardship. Agree with Ben, it looks like a lovely project, and what's been done out there is beautiful. And it's certainly a beautiful property. I'm just, struggling a little bit.
So just to put it in perspective, the existing two-story portion of the garage is 25 feet overall.
Right.
The garage level, as I mentioned, has a 6'4" garage door.
Understand.
And an 8-foot ceiling in the garage.
Okay.
You cannot get anything but you cannot get any SUV in that garage. Period. I'm just building the picture here, right?
Yeah.
So that's the existing condition, and we would like to make it more usable, elevate it. Now, the dimension by which we elevate it, that's what we're discussing right now. The second floor is a 7'6" ceiling height, as I mentioned.
Yep.
We would like to bring that up 6 inches to make it a reasonable 8-foot ceiling height within half of that space. So 25 feet goes to 25'6", and then whatever we elevate the garage to be considered reasonable. Again, most of the garage doors that I've been installing on home renovations are 9-foot wide, 8-foot high garage doors. That's sort of the going size right now for garage doors to make them usable. And in order to make that size work, again, that's an 8-foot high garage door. To make that size work, you need some over travel in the ceiling height above it. Could you get creative and do something? You're still going to need at least a foot of space above that. Now you're talking a 9-foot ceiling in a garage, which is not an exceptionally high garage. So between that 1-foot increase and the 6-inch increase, that's an 18-inch increase over the existing, which is 25 feet. We're only asking for, 10 inches more than that just to achieve the design that we're looking for.
I guess
So
I certainly understand the measurements,
Yep.
And what I'm struggling with is not just that, right? It's a bigger apartment, so the amount in excess of a story and a half is expanded. The height's expanded. It's just, and I guess the other thing is, Lynn, could we go back to the drawings? I just want to be sure. I'm interested in the elevation that faces the pond where it's the cathedral ceiling. Does that come out, or is the...
Sure, give me a second to pull it up.
Thank you.
Yeah. In the meantime, it's Rich Character. Can I ask the question, Dan? In any garage that anyone builds, self-included here, if one, or Ted, if one has an SUV, I mean, is 25 feet the max in New Canaan for any garage or any structure, accessory
structure? For an accessory structure, but again, you're dealing, I can't speak to every condition, but you're dealing with accessory structures that are limited to a story and a half, and very few of them have apartments above, living space above. So you're dealing with a different condition where you can do whatever garage design you want and height you want, and you're going to have some roof or attic space above it, and you're probably not going to be constrained by the 25-foot height. This is sort of an atypical condition in that we do have an apartment use, an existing apartment use that we're trying to maintain and make, a reasonable height upstairs as well. Both of those factors combined are what is driving the overall height of the structure.
Rob Frangione again. Don't forget, it's not just the height of the vehicle. When the door opens and it's overhead, you've got that space. Then you've got the equipment for the overhead door,
the
motor, and that hangs from the ceiling. So you need some extra floor space between the top of the garage door.
Completely understand that, Rob.
The ceiling. And so if we were to take the existing structure that's there and just simply raise it to get that lower floor, keep everything the same, we'd still have to raise that structure on the same footprint up at
Correct.
least 2 feet. So what
Well,
we're
and
really
you'd be
doing
in for
is
a variance.
replacing that somewhere else.
You'd be in for a variance to do that.
Right, exactly, exactly.
I guess I also noticed that the dimension that exceeds the 27 or the 25 feet is not only lateral, but it comes out in the cathedral area as well. That's-
Correct. Keeping the same ridge line there.
Okay.
Hey, Rich, Ted Sliple. It's worth noting also that both the garage structure and the apartment is a legal apartment, so it's got a separate meter, separate septic system for what that's worth.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's ask Lynn, is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak in favor of the project?
If anyone wants to speak, can you just raise your hand or do the raise hand icon?
Okay. Anybody against, want to speak against the project?
I don't see anyone. I just see the applicants for both this project and the next one. So.
Okay.
Okay.
To the board members,
John, it's Rich Carrington. Am I allowed to ask one more question before we close it out?
Absolutely, Rich. You are, you and
Yeah,
you absolutely are, and even when we're in the business session. That's where I'm going. Is there any more discussion?
Yeah, no, I just want, again, I know I read this. Can we just for the committee, what is there now, again, on this one particular structure with the garage and apartment, what exactly is there now? So what is the height of the existing structure now on the building that we're talking about?
Lynn, do you want to bring up?
I mean, I know it's, I'm reading it in the memo, but I just want to make sure we're all clear.
Best to describe it. Lynn, if you could bring up EX301.
Say what? I'm sorry. Say it one more time.
The PDF is called EX301, Existing Exterior Elevations.
Okay. Hold on one second.
Uh-huh. There you go. So Rich, to answer your question, front view of the garage, upper left, that's the south view. You have the 2-story portion. Overall height is about 25 feet, just shy of that. That's to the ridge line for the overall height of the building. The height of the second floor is 9 feet above the slab, so your ceiling line or ceiling level down below is just under 8 feet, 7'11". And the garage doors on that 2-story portion, those are only 6'4" high. So you'd have a tough time. You'd bang your head walking in there.
Right.
So that's what we're trying to fix and still maintain the use on the second floor. So, as I've described, all of these little incremental increases in height, whether it be the door, the ceiling height below, the ceiling height above, altogether, it adds up to about just over a 2-foot increase overall in the structure height.
Okay. And again, Rich Carrington, one other question. Is there anything that could be done with the ground around the property to make it conforming? Meaning, can you build up the, since you're doing new construction anyway, is there any fill or anything, what I'm talking about, that you could put around and level off? Is there points of measurement? Because again, I'm just speaking from personal experience. Sure. Do they take the measurement from the peak to certain points of the ground where maybe you can become conforming to the 20-foot height by?
Well, we wouldn't be able to do that because we'd have to build everything up. And currently, there's 2 things at play. Currently, the ground around the garage is. It's not totally level, but it's fairly level. There's probably about a 1 foot, maybe less than 1 foot variance as you go around the garage. And the new structure, there will be a little bit of fill and the slab will be a slightly different height, but the dimensions I'm discussing are final grade to top of structure. So existing grade to top of existing structure is the 25 foot, and the final grade to top of final structure is the 27.4 that I keep referencing in the drawings. So,
it's not even feasible to increase the grade by a foot, so like we could meet in the middle? No. Okay.
You'd be berming up against the building. It's a fairly level portion of the site down there.
Okay.
And you would be building and berming up against it, which I don't think anyone wants to do.
Okay. Okay.
You take the average grade 10 feet out, and Rob Franginian, and you would have to, I mean, in some places you'd probably have to raise, because we are blessed with such a gently sloping lot. I would think 2 to 3 feet in some places, and like Dan said, berming around the building.
Right.
It's just not. It's not wise.
This is Ben Bilas. Could you remind me again, what is the existing total coverage compliant now? Or is it in excess, is it excessive and it's being reduced below a non-compliant number?
Oh, we are not in excess of the total coverage at all.
I was having a genius moment. I thought I could trade.
No. Give me 1 second. Let me call up the right drawing real quick.
Right. Again, the issue isn't that this exceeds total allowable building coverage. It's accessory structure building coverage that requires a special permit, which is.
Do you want me to call up the survey again? But I believe for the building coverage
Yeah,
at the site, they're allowed, I think, 12,000, and they're at like 5,000 right now, I believe. And the structure size, if I recall correctly, was something close to 1,400.
I can say that
now.
the footprints are shrinking, because
Yeah.
I did the drainage analysis for this, and the footprints between the existing 2 garages and the new garage, the existing garages, their footprints were about 1627,
Right.
and the new garage, the footprint is like 1216, give or take.
Right.
So there is a reduction in footprint when you consolidate 2 buildings.
So the existing site is just a few square feet under 6 acres, 5.959. And based on that acreage, the total allowable building coverage for the site is 12,124.
Yeah, you're way under.
What's being proposed is 7,984, which is less than what's currently there, which is a little over 8,000, 8,300 or something.
This is Becky Walsh. Have you had any comments from the neighbors, in particular the Janicas, who are right behind that cottage?
I haven't specifically, but I know that the owner has. They are friendly. The owner happens to live about 4 doors up on the same road,
Right.
so they're friendly with all the neighbors. I think Matt LeBaron is on the phone. He's on the call. I don't know if you can see his number, Lynn, but maybe Matt.
He was on the call. He disappeared. I think he must have
did he?
left. Yes, he was here before.
Okay. Yes, the owner has spoken with them, and they are in favor of the application.
And Lynn, all mailings have been received?
Yeah, but we haven't received any letters either for or against this project from any neighbors or anybody at all.
Great. Okay.
John, it's Becky.
Becky.
Refresh my memory. If we feel that they may get not a good vote from us, are we to suggest that they maybe go back to the drawing board and come back to us prior to us going into the business session? Or would we do that after?
We have in the past asked people where we thought it was not going to go in their favor. We have articulated what our concerns are and asked them to go back to the drawing board, and we keep the application open so that they can come immediately back to continue to keep the project moving. If we were to decline, I would assume we would decline without prejudice, which would allow them to come back prior to a 6-month cooling off period. So I think that before we go into a business session, if the board wants to entertain more discussion and articulate our concerns over the project, we should do that. And Lynn, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we need to do that before going into the business session, because at that point, we can have no more discussion with the applicant back and forth. Is that correct, Lynn?
Yes, you are correct.
Thank you. So I think that you know, I'd like to hear some more discussion with the board members before we chose to go into the business session, so that we can give the applicant options if that's what's appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, it's Becky again. I think I understand the need for getting the ceiling height in the garage area. But I know that, you know, there are plenty of accessory structures around town that have garages that get the big cars in it, and they have living space up above, and they seem to be within the height, the height regulations. So I'm just wondering if there isn't some play on the maybe the upper floor to get it to 25 feet or closer.
Yeah, we would have to lower the roof line, introduce some different form of dormer in order to accommodate that, and possibly loosen ceiling height in some of the rooms.
Dan, is 10 feet really necessary? Do you need 2 feet of travel above an 8-foot floor?
It's 9'4" or 9'5" in the garage, and that's for an 8-foot door. That's leaving about 16 to 18 inches of over travel because you need to maintain a certain curvature of track to get the door up and above.
Okay. And there's nothing in the garage, no stacking of cars or anything like that that's creating the need?
No, typically you need in excess of 11.5 feet to make that work.
Okay, thank you. Jessica, Ben, Richard, thoughts?
Yeah, this is Jessica Carden. I agree with Becky. I'm still struggling with what the hardship would be. I appreciate that there's a very beautiful aesthetic plan that's been proposed. It certainly looks lovely, but you know, living in an older house myself with less than 8-foot ceiling heights and a pretty small garage, I know what I'm living with and that it's regulation. And I know that there are challenges. Obviously, sometimes you don't always get the maximum height. You have to make certain compromises with the project, particularly when this is non-compliant as a 2-story structure already, and you're replacing it with an ask for even more of an allowance for the total height. So I'm struggling with that because I just don't see something tied to the parcel that would justify it on a legal basis.
Richard, Ben, any thoughts?
Well, this is Ben, and I think I'm sitting where Jessica is and I think where John is. It's a great project. I'm just having a hard time giving it an approval. I just don't see the reason why it has to be that high based on something that other than it would be nice. So if we could get it to what would be essentially a de minimis increase over the restriction, a foot, say, I could probably go with that.
And that's kind of, well, we were looking at it from that view. We thought the 2-foot ask was de minimis.
Yeah.
We were already consolidating the 2 structures and making a single smaller footprint, reducing the overall coverage by 35% of the accessory structure.
Yeah.
All of which we thought was going to better the condition.
Yeah. Next time you come in with a 10-foot variance request, and then you feel down.
Yeah, this is Rich.
Then my responses it would have been a lot harder. Have
This
you
is
seen
Rich.
that new SUV?
Yeah,
Sailboat on top of it.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, and then this is Rich Caratu. I'm going where Ben is, and that's why, Dan, I was starting to ask those questions about. In my mind, I think if the owners and you and the team came back with a foot, I think I could. You would have my vote. I mean, I think it's beautiful. It looks good. I mean, if there wasn't the rule book that I read in coming into this committee, that I have to identify a hardship, and and kind of an SUV and a nice apartment on top with a beautiful structure. It's great, and it looks great. It's just trying to. I just can't figure out what the true hardship is, and if it wasn't for that hardship rule, I vote for it. But to get your arms around the hardship and then what's de minimis and putting that all together, I think if you came back with the foot, you would have my vote. Is my input.
Yes, one thing I'd remind the board of is that there are actually 3 variances, I think, being asked for. One is the height. One relates to the 2-story structure, because we're, only a story and a half is allowed. Now, the existing structure, I think, probably qualifies as 2 stories where the apartment is. So it's
correct.
We've got a legally non-conforming use. I understand it's not as functional as we would want. I guess where I'm having a bit of a problem, honestly, particularly given the hardship question, is it seems like a lot of ends. I mean, we've got so it's 3.5E,
Right.
F2, F1, F2, F3. So 3.5, F1, 2, 3. So
Building height of progressive grade and number of
So
stories. Yeah.
we're over 30 feet, Dan, from, is 2 actually needed? We're over 30 feet?
No, we're not.
So then maybe do we have an error with 3.5 F2, Lynn?
Yeah, that's the pre-existing grade. So, and I believe you, on the existing drawings, they're just under 25 feet.
Correct.
Right, so we only have 2, I correct myself, we have 2 variances needed. I
Yes.
think we don't need 3.5 F2. So one has to do.
Wait, John, this is Ben.
Yes, Ben.
The application is for 3. So if they didn't really need to get 3, they really should amend the application.
We may want to double check that, only because
That's
if
fine.
that regulation is relating to existing grade, how you measure from the peak
Right.
to existing grade versus peak to proposed grade.
Right.
But it's a wide variance. I mean, it's 5 feet between the proposed and the existing. You'd have to be doing a lot of grading, wouldn't you, Rob?
Right, but I didn't do the application, and I didn't do the average grade, so I don't want to say it was an error without checking that.
No, I think that's great. Because I also don't want to claim an ask if there isn't one.
There is none, right? Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'd rather, thank you, Ben. This is John Mahoney. I'd like to get, the application squared away. Is that something you can do right now, Rob, or do we need to come back?
No, I didn't run the
I
average
did the
grades.
application. I
Yeah,
can take
John
care of the
did-
application.
or Dan did the application. So
Dan, do we need that, or do we not need that? Was that?
I don't think we need that, because the top of structure from existing grade is only 25 feet. So
I can't imagine that you're taking it over existing grade, you're not over 30 with the.
no, I don't.
proposal.
No, I think it's 1 foot. Have to go back to the grading. I don't think we're adding that much there.
There's really not.
For no,
No, I mean, looks like we're maybe putting 2 feet of fill tops in the back. I mean, it's not,
Yeah, which was, I think, a little down, if I recall. So
right, because the grade
Right.
slopes down
Yeah.
towards the back.
right.
Mm.
I think overall, from existing grade, the existing structure is 25 feet above, and we're changing the grade by about a foot, it looks like, on the southwest corner, and probably less than that on the northwest corner. So I think we can eliminate section 2.
Lynn, how do we do that just so that the record is correct?
Well, if you're going to take a vote on the variance tonight, you would amend it by just not granting it, or
Okay.
applicant would amend it. If they're going to take it back and revise portions of it, then they can submit a revised application that will re-advertise.
Okay. I mean, I get, so tabling that for a moment, just to give you where my head is at, I'm very much like that we're taking the existing accessory structure coverage down from a little over 1,600 to something approximating 1,200 square feet. I do acknowledge that 1,200 is above the allowable coverage for an accessory structure, but that is a significant reduction. Going the other way, though, is that the apartment is going up by a little more than a third and making the second story what is currently like a half a second story to a full second story over the to be built. You know, it's basically as I say, it's a 30% or 35% increase in the size of the second story, which is going the other way. And then we have the height issue. So to me, it's not just the height, and the height to me is not one ridge line, but two. You have the ridge line coming out towards, I guess, what would be the west where the pond is. So I guess, you know, hearing from the board and everything, I'm hearing some hesitation on the amount of the variances being asked, particularly given the hardship. Certainly understand that the existing garage does not work for anything other than an MG or a very small car. So again, I would remind the applicant that it takes 4 affirmative votes to approve the variance. If we go into business session, then we're gonna, you know, we have to go forward and take a vote. I leave it up to you if you want to ask us to do that. Hopefully you've heard and I would ask the board members if there's anything we've missed or that you'd like to chime in on, or the applicant, whether, you know, you think we've missed anything before we go into the business session. Your options are either for us to go into a business session or perhaps to hit the pause button, allow you to come back next month and address some of the concerns. And it's really your decision as to which way to move forward.
Just Mr. LeBaron got kicked off the call. He's just asking me what was going on, so I'm emailing him. So bear with me. I just asked him if we could come back next month, keep it open, and we will look at reducing it as much as possible to get closer to the 25 foot, which I think would be the better way to go about it, because if it's denied, then obviously we go back to square one in terms of the queue and getting back on your agenda. There's probably some way we can reduce it. I just don't know, how much. But again, we'll just try and get as close to the 25 as possible.
So is that what you would like to do, Dan, or do you want us to wait a minute and get your client's feedback?
He hasn't responded yet. I
This is
wish
where I missed the
technology was
in-person.
faster, but he might be typing.
Yeah.
This is
Um,
where I missed the in-person part where you could like, tug them on the
yeah,
shoulder.
you could just look over at the client and get a nod.
You get a head nod or yeah.
Oh, well.
Believe me, it's the only part I miss.
Yeah.
I love these Zoom things. These are much better.
Lynn, if I can ask, when is the next ZBA hearing?
It is November, I'll tell you, it's, I believe it's November 2nd, actually, right before Election Day.
Mm.
Oh, great.
If I
So,
recall.
If, just thinking through, because again, I mentioned that we would have to go before P&Z, and I believe, Lynn, you had mentioned we would need to go before P&Z for the November hearing, which is November 17th.
But you could also end up before the December 15th one at P&Z. So.
But my question is, given what we've discussed tonight, and if we are able to satisfy the ZBA's, the commission's request, and come before them on November 2nd for hopeful approval, could we still be put on the agenda, since it is a different ask for P&Z, could we still be put on the agenda for the November 17th hearing on P&Z?
No, because the timeline for advertisement would not work.
But
Even though
wouldn't
we're asking for two different
right.
issues?
Yeah, because and that would also, you'd be applying about a week or so after everyone else would have to get theirs in, because it's October 27th is the next hearing for P&Z, and the deadline for that application would be October 28th, and you would be coming in, the earliest would be November 3rd. So that would be a week after
Well,
everyone else.
I understand. What I'm saying is, can we apply now for P&Z?
You can, but you can't be on the, I mean, you could apply, but you can't go anywhere because you need variance in order for them to make a decision. So you just sit
No,
there.
I completely understand that, but can we apply now for the November 17th P&Z hearing with the expectation that we'll come before this board on November 2nd
Right.
with a viable solution, hopefully get approval, and then move on to the P&Z meeting on November 17th?
So the short answer would be no, because it's not a complete application for the P&Z because you don't have a variance from the ZBA. So you could apply, but you couldn't make it onto the docket because you can't get on the docket without a complete application, and then you would have an advertisement period. But it's a short window between the November and December meeting. The next P&Z meeting is December 15th.
Oh, it's a month.
Yes. Very
But I
short
would
one.
think that
It's Ted Seipel. I just heard from Matt LeBaron. He's in favor of tabling this issue and then readdressing it perhaps next month.
They're okay with it?
Yes.
Okay, then we'll keep it open then.
Okay. Lynn, do we have to have a motion to do that, or are we good with the application, the applicant's request?
You can make a motion, but you don't necessarily need a motion to continue the item.
Well, this is Ben. I will move that we continue this item till next month's meeting.
No, I second that motion.
Thank you, Richard.
Rich Carrington.
And all those in favor?
Cardin in favor.
Aye. Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Please, I'd listen to, take in everything. Certainly most people are concerned on the height, but take it, think about the totality of the ask, and we look forward to seeing what you come up with next month.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. and Mrs. Worth, thank you very much for your patience.
No problem.
Believe it or not, this is actually, not that controversial a meeting.
Well, thank you guys for having us. My name is Charlie Worth.
Wait, just to stop for a second.
Yes.
John, just read the agenda item, please.
Yes, I will. The next item on the agenda is 59 Sheridan Drive, application by Charles and Joanna Worth for variance of section 3.5E3 to allow minimum yard setback for a principal building.
And John, I am in this. I'm
Yes,
a full member in this.
and thank you very much, Rich, for reminding me. Both you and Becky are still seated for respectively for Laura and Luke.
Luke and Laura.
Luke and Laura.
So thank you. So thank you guys for having us. My name is Charlie Worth. This is my wife, Joanna Worth. Lynn, would it be possible to put up the little spreadsheet or the PowerPoint?
Yeah, I'm just pulling it up. Give me 1 second as you speak. So you could start a conversation and I'm going to pull it up.
Absolutely. So I'd like to just start by correcting, and I think it was our error, the notes that this is for an accessory building, the variance request. It's not for the primary. It's for a detached garage. So just real quick, not to put too much into it, but me and my wife moved here at the end of 2017, fell in love with this house, this 4-bedroom, 2.5-bedroom house, fell in love with the area, the neighbors, and really started seeing ourselves growing in this area. What we soon learned from having a child, 2019, and lawn equipment, that the space for the cars and the lawn equipment just isn't accommodated by what was built in the 1960s. So in the last few years, we started talking and thinking about, well, how are we going to make this our forever home? And the biggest restraint that we had became the topography of the property. The house is located on the western portion of this 4.2 acre lot. And we started looking at the slope grade and all these other things. And we wanted this to be a primary garage. We didn't want it to be just something that we put in the back of a property or the bottom of a property for storage. We wanted it to be the one last piece that we need for this house to have it as our lifelong house. Right now, we're not able to get the cars in from a safety standpoint, and the lawn equipment is starting to bulge literally out of the garage that we currently have. That's something personally that I love doing, maintaining my own property. It's something. I came from Queens and I grew up on Long Island. My wife grew up in Westchester, and it's something that's instilled in me and something I love doing. And so the hardship that I'm stating is the biggest is going to be the topography of the property because of the slope and where the house is located on this parcel of land. Just to state for the record, we are asking for a variance on the section 3.5E3, which is a side variance for an accessory building from 50 to 25 feet. Again, we're looking for the location of this to be practical, to fit in with our everyday life, to put away these cars, the lawn equipment, the toys, and that is the most practical spot. If we go into the hardships that we're currently facing, this is just a little bit of a close-up of the garage and the location. The main hardships, as I had gone over, the topography is the biggest. With the slope of the land, the location that we're proposing is basically the last flat area on the property. The other hardship is the location of the septic system, which is in the rear of the property. So if we were going to think about how a garage would possibly wrap around the house and be on the back side of that patio, we're going to start infringing on the health area of the current septic system. And the last one is how this COVID-19 has affected us. And I know financial is not something that is considered a hardship, but it's not so much the financial, but the lifestyle change that we both have occurring. I find myself sometimes on the porch, in the garage, because we both are now working from home now. We have no intent on making this home any larger than the 2,500 square feet that we currently have. We love the house as it stands today. But what this freestanding detached garage would also do is give us a little bit of a loft and to create a little of a workspace for one of us or possibly both of us to continue working from home in that environment. Hopefully we have more children and we fill up the bedrooms and have a loving family here. And so that would be the other component to that. Again, I don't know if that's your typical hardship that you've seen, but it is real in our life that we're currently going through, that having the proper space to be able to accommodate our work environment now is a part of the real life that we go through.
And I think there's a picture here that just shows in the
So this is just a
slide,
quick
yeah.
summary of the hardships. The topography is, that is the slope of the land on the going to the eastern part. So putting it downhill topography wise makes it difficult. And also it's not a good location for having it as the primary garage. Like, to be able to use it every day, it makes it difficult down there. The second one is just the location of the septic system in the back of the house. And the third is basically how COVID has affected our lives in a working from home environment, and maybe create some sort of workspace for us above that garage. The last slide is simply just an overview. We fully intend on complying with every and all regulation rules of a detached garage accessory structure. The one that we are asking for is that side variance from 50 to 25 feet to accommodate this.
And one thing I just wanted to note is, we sent letters to all of our neighbors within the 100 feet. So the neighbors on the side of us, in the back, and to the east of us. We did have the Goodmans over on Saturday. They're directly behind us on the southern side, and they were in full support. They weren't able to send a letter in, but they did text us. So it's possible, to get that, further in a letter. We've spoken to the neighbors across the street from us as well. While they're not directly infringed by it, they think it's a great idea to kind of clean up the yard a little bit and put our cars away.
Their last name is the O'Reillys. They're directly across from us. So they would actually be looking into our driveway, and they were fully on board as well.
Yeah, and we spoke to the Heavies as well. They're a little bit down, and they were in support of it as well. So we've kind of gotten a gut check from a lot of our surrounding neighbors. And yeah, we see this as being our forever home. And I just want to clean up his lawn equipment. So would like to get that out of the way. But yeah, I think that all in all, we're looking at this 25-foot variance request here and hoping that you guys will consider it. That's all we have for now.
Could we go back, Lynn, to the close-up of the survey? There was a line that was coming off the septic. Is that meant to show the distance that you have to be from the tank?
Hold on 1 second.
Excuse me.
Frank Walsh did the survey, I think.
Yeah, you see this, the blue line that comes off of the septic there, is that a leach line, or is that meant to show like a distance?
That's a leaching field that I think was an accessory leaching field. The primaries go to the east part of the property.
Okay.
The one main is coming out, but it's not showing. It just, the hardship on that one is if we tried to put and brought the garage around back in a way and change around the whole patio, we would start infringing on that septic field.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Of course. There's no there's no main hurdles. Like we have a lovely Japanese maple tree that's in the back of the property that we've talked about how it's going to be staying in place right behind the back of the garage. We've already discussed how landscaping could be done, and bushes and shrubs could be put on the right side between the current rock wall and this garage to put some privacy to the Guo neighbors, which is directly on that side of that property.
This is Becky Walsh, and your front lawn looks absolutely stunning. So if you did that yourself, you can come to my house. It really was beautiful. And obviously your hardship is the fact that the house was built so close to the edge of the property to begin with. I think that, I don't know about how the other board members feel, even though 25 feet seems like a big ask, they're not asking for anything else. But I would like to clarify the space above. You would just have electricity in there. You would have no water, no bathroom.
We've been discussing that, whether or not we wanted to put a half bathroom. When the health department was here to look over everything, because we were having the soil test done to get that in place, and they had said that if you wanted to put a half bathroom in, I know the steps necessary with Palladino to prove out that the current septic's in a good standing. So we have not made a final decision on that, but it is something that we're still talking about, is putting a half bathroom in there.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
This is Ben, and I just have the comment that the COVID-19 based hardship argument, that's novel. Novel coronavirus, yes. I'm not sure it qualifies, but it does add a flavor to the request. And I think we're probably going to see more of that as people leave the city and they want to do things to the houses out here. But in any event, I'm inclined to find that this is not a significant ask given the circumstances with the septic field and the slope. I think there are sufficient hardships for this to be justified.
I agree with Ben. This is Jessica Carden. Look, I know the same challenges of working from home with limited space, being in a house that was built in the 1880s. But I don't know that it would give you the legal basis right now, but what's in your favor is you have a very steep topography, so steep that before I even saw the property, I could tell from the Google images that you had that sloping grade, and that would cause a lot of challenges. And you couple that with the septic system and piping work and things, that's clearly going to be a challenge for you to put anything. I mean, even if you proposed a one-car garage on there, you'd already be asking for a variance. So it is very challenging with the property. So, I certainly appreciate that you came in with a plan that asked for just two-car garage even instead of, a three-car garage. So, I do think there's significant issues with the grade as a hardship.
And this is Rich Carey too. I agree between the septic and the sloping. I see sufficient hardships to move forward with an approval.
This is John Mahoney. Just one quick question for you, and then a question back for Becky. But what's the plan with the existing garage? Are you keeping that as garage? Are you converting that to other living space? What's your intention there?
Yeah, we have no intentions on increasing the square footage of the house. That would become my wife's garage, I think, and this other would become my garage, maybe. We're still in negotiations internally on that one, but We fully intend on that car, her car, remaining in that garage.
Okay. And Becky, are you looking to confirm that it's nothing more, that it's not becoming an in-law apartment or something above the garage?
Right.
You were going.
Yeah, we often have people come before us and they want to, you know, start with maybe just a sink and then all of a sudden it turns into a living quarters for somebody.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Right, it's Rich Character. I think we need to make clear our variances for the structure for the garage and not for going above and beyond what P and Z would have to, you know, what the rules are, whether a kitchen or bedroom is allowed. You know, we're just approving of, if we do approve a variance for a structure for a garage, not for a separate living quarters, if not allowed by the code.
Understood.
And I have to, just as an aside, you said, if I heard you correctly, you have one child who's about a year old.
Yeah, 18 months.
Yeah, well, the car is going to be the least of your storage problems. Wait till the hockey equipment, the bikes, all that stuff starts coming along.
That's going to go in her garage.
And you know, John Mahoney, I don't know if anything is off the record here, but they mentioned O'Reilly's. They're talking about Bob O'Reilly, who was a long time, John Mahoney and I worked at GE, General Electric, and Bob O'Reilly was a long time executive at General Electric.
Yep.
Where Bob and I, where John Mahoney and I worked. So yeah, very fortunate to live across the street from the O'Reillys. Good, very good people. And that could go on the record.
Yeah. All right. I guess I have to ask, is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this application?
Mr. Mahoney, there is no one here other than
Oh.
the applicant, board members, and Ben and myself. So you can ask the question of whether there's anyone here, but there's no one here. It appears either for or against.
I just don't want to get sued at a later date, right, for not following procedure. And I take it then, Lynn, there is nobody here to speak against either.
No, there is not. There's no one here either for or against the application.
Okay, they're all watching the baseball game. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Do you have to go into, do you want to go?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, we have to go. Any other questions from the members of the board?
No.
Okay. And Mr. and Mrs. Worth, if we limited the use of the space above the garage to, I think I'm not hearing any concerns over it being improved, but we don't want it to become a dwelling unit, right? So half bath is fine. When it starts to get to be a full bath or a kitchen along with it, we would have a problem with that perhaps. Are you okay with that limitation?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Okay. All right, with that, I think we'll go into the business session. Any further discussion? No? Okay, would somebody like to make a motion?
Jessica would.
I move that we approve the variance that's been sought for the two-car garage structure with the restrictions that the board has stated that there be no more than, I guess, some electrical or plumbing added for at most a half bath. And also that the hardship noted is based on the steep topography and limiting the proximate placement of the garage to the driveway and the main structure house, as well as the sewer placement.
Terrific. Do we have a second?
I second. Becky Walsh.
Seconded by Becky Walsh. Rich, would you like to start the voting?
Yes, I vote for the variance. Yes, Rich Carriage is for the variance.
Ben?
Bilas in favor.
Becky?
Walsh in favor.
Jessica?
Cardin in favor.
And Mahoney in favor. Congratulations, your variance is granted. And just be sure you don't lose all that space to the toys.
Starting to happen already.
Yeah, I've been there, done that.
Wait till you get the Legos.
Thank you very much, guys, for your time. And Becky, if you want me to come over and start working on your lawn, I'm available.
Yeah.
That's bribery. That's
I might have to wrestle Becky for that offer.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye-bye now.
Okay,
Bye.
I think, Lynn, we normally would do the minutes from the last meeting, but we can't do that because we don't have a quorum.
Yeah, well, yeah, you don't have enough members that were here that could vote. So
Right.
Only 3 of you.
Okay,
So I think
And-
we're gonna have to hold that until November.
right. We'll have to do it in November and hopefully we'll have enough then because I'm sure that given one of the matters on there, we should button it up as quickly as we can.
Yeah.
And I agree, we need to be sure that that word with Ben, that the wording is correct.
Yes, we'll go back and check that and confirm that and make any changes necessary and resend it out.
So I think, Ben, the actual motion that I made may have been
It
to
it was inverted in some way, John, as I recall.
I recall that too.
Mhm.
So,
But I can't remember what Peter said.
yeah, I can't either. So I don't think we have anything else, do we, Len?
We don't. You can just make a motion to adjourn.
I motion that we adjourn the meeting. All in favor?
All right.
Hi.
Nice job, John.
All right,
All
guys.
right. Thank you, John.
Good
Excellent.
night, everyone.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
everybody, for your
Bye.
input and feedback and engagement.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good night.
Thanks, Lynn.
You too. Have a good night.